Hello, this is Learn to Love Yourself or Serenity with Rosie. And today is the second one in the series of overcoming rejection and building confidence. And today's topic is healing old wounds, where rejection first took root. And so, first, I'm going to take a brief moment and invite you, if you would like to as well, to clear my energies and invite my spirit guides and angels to be here with us. For I really only want this to be there for those who need it, those who are seeking answers and don't understand it. I'm not saying that I have the answers, but I know that you have the answers. And if I can say something that will spark an idea in your mind to help you find the answers, then that is why I do this channel. But the question of to heal old wounds, and to get where rejection first took root, you would have to unpack a lot, because rejection, as in my last video, we talked about all of the different, there's shame, feeling unworthy, abandonment, anger and resentment, loss of identity, hopelessness, and emotional numbness. And so all of those can tie. But have you ever wondered what it was that made you to stop believing that you were worthy? And I'll tell you a little scenario that happened in my life. As you know, if you've watched my videos, I was raised in a religion, and when my daughter was born, I put her to sleep, and they were like, well, you can't stay here. And I didn't have, when they first were coming out with baby monitors. And so I was just like, I didn't have one. And they were like, well, you have to come to class. And so I'm like, well, so I laid her on the floor in my bedroom, and put a pillow by her so that she wouldn't fall off anything or hurt herself. And I went down, because this house was quite large. It was like 16 bedrooms or something, and went to class. Well, after the class was over, then you couldn't hear anything from that distance, but I went up and everything seemed quiet, and I tried to open the door to my bedroom and I couldn't. And I was like, what? And I finally was able to kind of push it in a little bit, and my daughter was in front of the door, and I opened the door, and I was so heartbroken, because she was asleep. But you know how when somebody had cried themselves to sleep, and so they were just when they were still asleep, but they were, every once in a while, she had that when she was, I think she was like 6 or 7 months old, but she just like, every once in a while was like, had that shaky little breath where you knew that she had been crying. And I was so upset. I was so brokenhearted that she had needed me and I wasn't there. And so I was like, my daughter needs me. I would not leave her after that, because I just thought that's so terrible. And some people are like, oh no, you got to let them learn to self-soothe. And that just fired every core of my being on fire. And I'm like, why would I let her cry and self-soothe? And how is that healthy for children? And I've never understood that, especially babies. One thing if it's a 2-year-old or older, but a baby, Why would you try to have self-soothe as that's an excuse to let them cry? Because then you're teaching them that they can't count on you. You're teaching them that maybe you don't want them. You're teaching them that there's that they're going to have to figure out everything on their own now because they can't depend on you. And it's like, why would you want to teach your little child that? Your baby. And so I can understand why, as a child grows and matures, that is an important thing to learn how to help take care of themselves. But a little baby, why would you do that? And so I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying is I have varying degrees of things I don't agree with in the traditional sense. But that abandonment, that's why I'm saying is it can be a core wound. And this, when your child's 6 months old, they're dependent. And sometimes, yes, there's times when they're not hungry, they're tired, but they just want to cry or be held because they want that reassurance that you're going to be there. And why would you want to prove them that you're not? That you don't care and that they should live without you. You see the mother birds, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but all of them kicking their babies out of the nest before they can even fly. You have to have a certain level of understanding and development. And a baby that is a young child under the age of 1 is not going to understand. They're just going to think they're being punished. And that's where some of the core wounds come from. But the biggest thing is when you think, I am going to be left alone. I can't trust anyone. And then we have all these problems as adults because we suffered with things like this as a child. Whether your parents they weren't there as much as you wish they were, or didn't give you the attention that you wanted. And you felt like somehow that you weren't important enough. You see that all across the board with parents that are so busy because society in today's world, you have to be working, and a lot of times both parents have to work if you have 2 parents. And I know myself, it's been a struggle. It really has. And it's hard to find time, to make time to be there, because that is what's important. Your connection with your children is what is important. How they feel. And, even checking on them. And obviously, it's a two-way street. All of this is. But in the same sense, that's why you have to set groundwork. You have to start at the bottom. When you build a building, you start in the foundation. And that's why you want to give these children a good foundation. And that's what I'm not saying this is, I don't want this to turn into a topic on child rearing, but a lot of people are like, do you raise your kids so different? But I want my kids to know and to understand things. And, I don't always say yes, but I have valid reasons when I say no so that they can understand. So I don't just say it just because. And you have to take time with them. So rejection doesn't always come as a loud no. Rejection can be just, like I said, sometimes parents are just too busy to listen to their story for the 15th time, depending when they're really excited. I've been a kid. I know what it's like to not have someone to listen to you. And I'm not saying that I was neglected. I'm saying is my parents did the best that they could. My parents worked from the time I was born. I mainly remember my older sisters there. And so, but I can understand why someone would feel that way. But then, in the same sense, I can also see it from the view of a parent and the struggles. And it's really easy to cast blame and cast judgment when you haven't walked in the shoes. But when you can see both sides of the scale, then you come to realize more and more that for the most part, everybody's doing the best they can. The best decision for the information and the knowledge that they have at that moment. Nobody just wants to do things that's going to harm themselves most of the time. But, you know, have you ever had the friend who is too busy to talk to you, or ignores you, or doesn't actually pay attention or remember anything you tell them? And all of this, all of the factors, it's big and it's challenging. But the biggest thing is abandonment is silenced and unseen. That's how it makes you feel. And I know I had a scenario where, and I'm not telling you this story to cast blame on anyone, it's just to tell the story. But I had a scenario that happened when I was around 18, and I had pneumonia really bad. And I remember I could hardly breathe, and I was fighting for every breath. And I asked one of my parents that come in, I said, "Help me, I can't breathe." And they just started crying and walked out of the room. And I figured I was just going to die at that point. And I'm not blaming them. I'm sure they had a whole bunch of other things going on at the time. And I will forever deal with challenges that occurred in my body at that time. But you can understand from the view of both sides of how you could feel abandoned and not wanted at one point, and then the other point where people were too scared to take action. But so how do you think it shows up, abandonment problems? In general, I mean, you see it, and I know I've done it several times before I learned to realize to value myself and to learn about self-love. You have your people pleasing, people who are always trying to do everything for everyone else because they feel that void in themselves, that they're not good enough because they've been told that they weren't good enough, and they don't feel like they're good enough. And so they almost overdo it. The people who are always saying, "I'm sorry," that is a sign of abuse whenever you see that. And so, and I know me, I was terrible. I had to break that habit because I was saying I'm sorry for everything, and even I'm sorry wasn't even good enough for some of the people I was around. And I didn't realize how toxic of situations I was in. I just thought I was doing the best I could to survive. But really, truly, when you take your power back when you realize that you are worth more, you can have more, and the only one who can make that choice is you. No one else can make that choice for you. And it seems scary. It seems daunting. I know. I understand. I've been there. But this is the turning point in your life. This moment of making this decision can make you freer than you ever have been in your life. And you can find peace. And you can find joy. And then you realize it was almost in your head the whole time, because you weren't the problem. And I have been the problem sometimes. And that's why I say that your actions always create reactions. That's how karma works. Good and, well, I don't really believe in good and bad, but you get the heavier and the lighter energies. And so regardless of what you do, you get whatever you send out. Always comes back to you, no matter what. It always comes back. And so when you see that neighbor, when you see that friend, when you see that child, how do you treat them? How do you interact with them? How do you respond? Because how you treat them is how the world is going to treat you. And how you think of yourself is also how they treat you. And so if you think of it, you're going and living your life and you're surrounded by mirrors where everything that happens is all reflecting back to you. And so if you ever consider for a moment that you're not important, in your reality, you are important, because you have to answer for everything that you do. You have to pay for all the misdeeds. Not so much pay as you get learning opportunities. And that's what growth and pain is. But the thing is people are like, oh yeah, my body's just mad. But your nervous system remembers everything, even if you don't remember it. I've blocked out lots of things in my life, but my nervous system remembers. And it's another thing that you get to learn to overcome. The other one I wanted to talk about is when people just shut down. They won't talk to anybody. They don't want to talk. They don't want to listen. They don't want to nothing. And that's just, they're basically just climbed in themselves in a shell. Put themselves in a shell and blocking everything out. And it's usually when you're in so much turmoil. And I have to admit, I have definitely been there several times. The last big time, of course, some people say I'm always a hermit because I really enjoy my alone time. But the last big time was when I left the church. And that was just because I wanted to, once your identity is lost, you don't know who you are anymore. You don't know what way's up. Then it takes a minute to find your grounding again. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with feeling sorry for yourself or having pity parties. The only problem is if you stay there. You can cry, laugh, be angry, just don't hurt others. And then, after a while, you have to move on. But there's no deciding factor on how long that pain is going to take to heal. But if you're actively working on it, that's the thing is you have to be working on it. And if it takes you a minute of just trying to sit, vibe, fill it out, it's understandable. And so don't be so hard on yourself. Just put one foot in front of the other. That's all that matters. All you can do is what is right now in this moment. Nothing else matters. Just this one moment. So what happened to you was not your fault. It was not your fault. But healing is your power. Healing is your power. And I want you to remember that. Connect with your younger self. And if you don't know how, you can write in a journal. You can talk in the mirror. I know some people say talking to yourself in the mirror is a terrible idea. But if you need to, do it. Who cares what everyone says? There's no said rule book for how to heal. You already know all of the answers. All of the answers are already within you. You just have to ask. Say, help me, guides. Help me, angels. Help me, universe, or whatever you connect with. Help me through this. Help me understand. Help me see what I'm missing. Because there is help always with you. Always. You are never alone. And there is nothing that your higher self does not know. And your higher self is within you. But you do have to ask. Rejection may have started the story, but it doesn't have to write the ending. So I want you to remember that. Rejection may have started the story, but it's not writing the ending. Because you are. Because you know better now. You are learning more now. You can understand and perceive things. You know that you are magical because you are magic to your very core. And you are already enough. You always were. So I just want all of you to know how very loved you are. And help is only a thought away. I just hope this video finds whoever needs it. And all of you have a wonderful evening.